Okay, and we've made it to our final part of lecture, part 4 of religion and identity, Arab culture, and specifically we're going to talk about Islam. This section is a little bit longer, but I promise you the information is super interesting, and we are going to cover more of Arab culture, not just religion. All right, so what is an Arab country? Arab countries consist of the Middle East and North Africa. So here's a picture on the map here. So countries like Algeria, Egypt, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Syria. Iran is not considered an Arab country because most of the population is Persian, and so they are not considered an Arab country. So it consists of 22 countries stretching from Southwest Asia to Northwest Africa, and is a huge area with 338 million people. There are said to be 35 different dialects of the Arabic language spoken in this area. And like I mentioned before, Iran is not considered an Arab country. Most people are Persian or speak Farsi in this area. Okay, so let's talk about the Islamic faith. So the Islamic faith is really heavily linked to the Arab culture. And in the Middle East and North Africa, this holds about 62% of the world's Muslim population. So most practicing Muslims do live in these Arab countries, but of course we can find Muslims all over the world. The religion has 1.6 billion followers and consists of 23% of the world's population and is the second most popular religion in the world. In this religion, there is no priesthood or hierarchy. Everyone is said to answer to God or Allah. I wanted to go back and show you some symbols. You may have seen this crescent moon and star on a mosque. This is the Holy Book or the Quran, and this is inside of a mosque. You can see the congregation praying on prayer mats, and typically the prayer mats face Mecca when praying, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Okay, so the Quran, sometimes spelled with a K, sometimes with a QU, is the Holy Book of Islam. The Quran was revealed to Muhammad. Muhammad is the prophet of God and is said to contain the literal words of Allah or God. Most Qurans are published in Arabic, and so knowing the language is important to fully understanding the religion. So in this religion, there's no separation of church and state. So the book offers guidelines for how to run a state. Islam is the only world religion that offers rules by which to govern a state, as well as a set of spiritual beliefs. So not only does it have stories, admonitions, and values in the book, it also has sort of like laws and how to govern the state. An example of a law would be inheritance laws, like who gets family inheritance when somebody dies. So some other things found in the Quran: social, political, and economic laws, a code of ethics, the pillars of Islam. Kind of, you could compare it to the 10 Commandments of the Bible, and it also offers stories and is a spiritual guide. So some religious practices. Muslims consider Muhammad the last and greatest of all the prophets, but they do believe in other prophets mentioned in other religions: Abraham, Noah, Moses, and Jesus, and Muhammad is said to be the last prophet. If you see pictures of Muhammad, usually his face is either covered or might just be blank, and this is because the religion wants you to focus on God and not on Muhammad or priests or any other idols of any kind. So there are pillars, 5 pillars of Islam, and these are known as 5 religious obligations that every Muslim should fulfill. And I'm going to show you a short video on each of these pillars of Islam. I would encourage you to take notes, especially for our quiz.
Islam is based on 5 key practices known as pillars. The first is the profession of faith called Shahada. The phrase, "There is no true God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger," is at the heart of the religion. It must be understood and repeated aloud by anyone converting. The second pillar is prayer, which should be carried out 5 times daily while facing Mecca at dawn, midday, mid-afternoon, sunset and evening. The third pillar is charity. Every Muslim, according to their means, is required to give part of their income to help those in need. The fourth pillar is fasting during Ramadan. Muslims over the age of puberty must abstain from food, drink and sexual intercourse from sunrise to sunset during the 9th month of the Islamic calendar. The purpose is spiritual purification, a gesture of compassion to those suffering hunger, while simultaneously achieving spiritual growth. The fifth and final pillar is the pilgrimage to Mecca, the holiest site in Islam. Each Muslim is expected to make the journey once in a lifetime, provided they're physically and financially able to do so. Known as the Hajj, it takes place during the last month of the Muslim calendar.
Okay, so as mentioned in the film, the Hajj, or the trip to Mecca, is kind of a rite of passage, and if you are able physically and financially to go to Mecca, you are encouraged to do so. So this is a picture of the Al Haram Mosque, or the Grand Mosque, and this is located in the city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia. And as you see, there are people, most of them are dressed in white, and they are circling this square box here called the Kaaba. And so this is a picture of a pilgrimage to Mecca. Usually it takes about 3 days once you're there, and there are lots of very specific practices and rituals associated with this rite of passage. Okay, so I do want to talk about Saudi Arabia for a little bit because it is one of the most prominent countries in the Arab world. So here's a map of where Saudi Arabia is. Located on the Arabian Peninsula, it is the largest country on the Arabian Peninsula and occupies 90% of it. It is the 12th largest country in the world and holds 25 to 30% of the world's proven, as you may have guessed, oil reserves, which is why this is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Do pay attention to that 25 to 30% of the world's proven oil reserves that might show up on a quiz. All right, so in Saudi Arabia, there's something called Wahhabism, and it's seen as Saudi Arabia's dominant faith. And this is sort of an ultra-conservative form of Islam, pretty strict, and follows the Quran very tightly. In Saudi Arabia, there is currently a ruling family, or a monarchy. And so the monarch, or the prince of Saudi Arabia, serves as the person who is also the head of state. And in this country, religion is highly influential when it comes to laws of the country. All right, so Saudi Arabia is the most conservative Islamic country in the world. They have what's called a matawain, or sort of religious police, and the religious police in Saudi Arabia enforce Sharia law. Sharia law are like rules found in the Quran. And so things like wearing a head covering for women in public would be part of Sharia law. And so the matawain kind of enforce this religious law. The new prince in Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, is said to be a little more lenient when it comes to religious law, and has kind of said to the matawain to ease up a little bit. And so we see some changes in laws here. Most notably in 2018, women earned the right to drive and also go to work by themselves. Before, they had to be accompanied by a male family member or companion. So they're the moral police that patrol public domain. They make sure that businesses close at prayer times. There's often a call to prayer, so this can be heard sometimes over megaphones in the street, the call to prayer 5 times a day, and they might enforce things like women being properly covered. And here's a picture. And in Saudi Arabia, there's no public worship service except for the religion of Islam. So, as you might imagine, this is really different than the United States, where we have freedom of religion and you can just drive down the street in Los Angeles or even in Ventura County and you can see temples and mosques and churches. In Saudi Arabia, you will only find Islam. And in Saudi Arabia, the Quran is part of the Saudi constitution. So, as mentioned before, the Quran does offer guidelines for laws, and these are incorporated into their constitution. Okay, so let's talk about the city of Dubai. I've put it on a red star there on the map for you. So located right on the tip of the Arabian Peninsula, is often called the Las Vegas of the Middle East or the Pearl of the Persian Gulf. So it is the most populous city in the UAE or the United Arab Emirates. And the city of Dubai has the world's tallest building, tallest all-suite hotel, the largest artificial island, the world's first indoor ski slope found in the desert, one of the world's largest shopping malls, and an airport double the capacity of New York's JFK International Airport. This beautiful city is located on the water, and you can see a picture of it there on the right. There actually is a water and light show very similar to the Bellagio, which can be found in this marina here. All right, so the Burj Al Arab is the first all-suite hotel in the world, and if you look at the architecture, it's shaped kind of like a sail, and it was made that way right on the water. And this is the world's largest building, or tallest building, I should say. And it's called the Burj Khalifa Tower. It's 160 stories, 2,717 feet. And right in front of the Burj, you can see that water and light show that I was talking about there. A lot of people ask, what's in the Burj Khalifa Tower? So there are observation decks on floors 124, 125, and 148. There is fine dining. There is the world's highest swimming pool. There is the official Armani Hotel, which is a 5-star hotel. And most of the Burj is residences, so it consists mostly of apartments. And here's a picture of them cutting the ribbon at the Armani Hotel. All right, so now let's get into some of the culture in Saudi Arabia. I wanted to show you some of Hofstede's cultural dimensions. So as we see, they are high for power distance. So there's going to be great gaps between those who hold power and those who don't. This can be seen with things like the monarchy. This is a collective group, so ranking very low for individualism, only 25 out of 100. So this means that this group values group harmony, extended family. Masculinity, they are high for masculinity, so we are going to see more strict adherence to gender roles. Uncertainty avoidance, very high. As we learned earlier, sometimes religion can be linked to uncertainty avoidance. So religion having this need for certainty, like what's going to happen in this life and in the next life. And so this culture is very high uncertainty avoidance, probably not willing to take too many risks. Long-term orientation is rather low. Sometimes there's a lot of political unrest in this area, and so this is a reason why long-term orientation or planning for the future is a little bit low for this group. And then indulgence, higher than I had imagined, but sort of right there in the middle at 52. So we see that sometimes this culture is more restrictive and sometimes more indulgent. Okay, so we move on to dominant cultural patterns. So when it comes to activity orientation, how does this group spend their time? So in Arab culture, labor is a duty and a virtue, and your owner is God and the human is the trustee. So Muslims should invest and spend their money wisely. So don't be frivolous with your spending. Islam is also pretty conservative and focuses on practicality, so not buying like too many things or being too opulent. low indulgence for this culture as compared to just Saudi Arabia. So, time orientation, they are a polychronic culture. So remember, monochronic means you see time as linear, as a commodity, as moving forward. Polychronic kind of views time in a more relaxed way, more cyclical way. So punctuality is unimportant. It's okay and appropriate to be a few minutes late, maybe even 15 minutes late to an event. If it's dinner at a family member's house, it might be even more. So you might show up 30 minutes late. And there might not even be strict time restraints. You might just say, come over for dinner, and that might mean like around sometime in the evening. Interruptions are acceptable. I thought this was interesting when it comes to communication. So sometimes people might be telling stories, and you might jump in with your own story, and so these interruptions might go, and then conversations might last for a long time, and then dinner or your family hangout or whatever you're doing for the evening doesn't have a strict guideline like everyone needs to pack up and leave at 9 p.m. So interruptions are acceptable, and conversations might just be free-flowing for a long time. And then interpersonal relationships are really valued. So sometimes when doing business, the relationship is more important than the business that needs to be done. So you might make decisions to preserve a relationship rather than just get what you want. All right, some more dominant cultural patterns. Human nature orientation. So sort of what is the innate human nature of each person? Muslims believe that every person is born free of sin, and human nature is more good than evil. And when it comes to the relational orientation, like I said before, they are a collective group. They are also high masculinity, so men make decisions usually for the entire family, and probably the eldest man in the house is going to be the one making decisions. If there is a conflict between a married couple, they might go to their parents, specifically the elder male in the family, for advice or counsel. Rights and responsibilities of women are viewed as equal to men, but not identical. So women have their own rights and responsibilities, and these are often outlined in the Quran, but they're not going to be the same responsibilities that a man has. And in this culture, we do see more strict gender roles. Typically, the male is the head of the household, and the woman's responsibility is to take care of the home and the family. Okay, so that's it for our slides on Islam and also on Arab culture. Feel free to email me if you have any questions about this particular chapter.